So thank you very much for joining. I'll mute you to just not have any sounds during the meeting. But if you want to ask any questions or anything, raise your hand. I'll unmute, or you'll be able to unmute actually. Thank you. Okay, so we are here to talk about trauma and how we store trauma in the body and how we can release it, and what are the main things that we can do to recognize and release. And I'm going to share a presentation with you. So see how I can do that. Share. Can you see that? Yeah, cool. So first of all, what is trauma? Trauma is any type of distressing event or experience that can have an impact on a person's ability to cope and function. So it can be literally anything that happened in the past, in the present, or something that may happen in the future that will affect the life. And there's also saying that there can be a little t trauma or a big T trauma. So little t trauma is events that are not as distressing, but still cause us stress, like being in lockdown. And some people went into a very specific stage of stress and waiting, what's next, what's going to happen. And that was, for some, a trauma. And a big T trauma is usually something like an accident, something that happened in a childhood, like childhood abuse or neglect, and so on. So it can be emotional, can be physical, psychological harm. So there is a trigger warning in this webinar. If you at any point feel uncomfortable with the subject, you are able always to just disconnect. It's absolutely fine. It's just really important to talk about it, because if you feel like trauma is affecting your life, then you might want to know what to do to release it from the body. And I'm just going to have a look at participants, if anyone is joining. Just a little look, because I can't see from here. Okay, cool. We'll move forward into the next slide, which is trauma examples. So trauma examples can be, as I said, abuse, assault, car accident, death of a loved one, divorce, family or parental abandonment, imprisonment, job loss, natural disasters, physical injury, and so on. And about 6 out of every 10 men, so it's 60%, and every 5 out of 10, so 50% of women experience at least one trauma in their lives. And these are very big numbers, 60% of men and 50% of women, which means that we do live and we do meet people that have been through trauma. And it's really good to actually know about how to approach the subject if we are interacting with others. And this is, I will admit another person here. This is, these are statistics from US Department of Veterans Affairs. And as I said, it can be a big T trauma or a small T trauma. And as we move on, we will talk about how our bodies lock the trauma within. So there are some people say there are 5 different responses to trauma. So we have a fight, facing any perceived threat aggressively, flight, running away from the danger, freeze or flop, unable to move or act against a threat, and fawn, friend, immediately acting to try to please to avoid any conflict. And these can be different responses, can be within one person. So you might have all of these responses, but for different situations. And for me specifically, I realized quite recently how big is the freeze mode. Because if you imagine that you're a child, something really horrible happens to you, you freeze, your body locks and the whole experience in, but you cannot access it. So there is no possibility to access this memory and to work with it. And this is where dissociation comes in. So some of people are saying, I can't even feel anything, or I just completely don't remember anything, but I do have the response of dissociation when I do a specific thing. So for example, the trauma triggers can be very little. You can have a trauma response when you go into a party because your child, if your child, you as a child, sorry, was abused at a party where there was an alcohol involved, your body will straight away have the trigger, have the response. And if it was a freeze, you might feel straight away dissociated and you don't know why. It's happening in my body, but I have no idea why this is happening. So in my opinion, this is a very difficult one to work with, but it is possible. And we will talk about the possibilities of unlocking these traumas further as we go. Now, the long-term trauma response is intrusive thoughts and memories, hypervigilance, feeling unsafe, persistent fatigue, sleep disorders, nightmares, fear of recurrence, anxiety, focus on flashbacks, depression, and so on. So we have, as humans, if we don't work through this trauma, we then experience the following. And it might be really difficult to live like this, being hypervigilant. So for example, you are worried that something might happen to you. So you tick off all the boxes to prevent something bad happening, which makes you stressed, which causes anxiety. The feeling of unsafe. So the constant feeling of this unsafeness, even if we are at home with the family, everything is fine, still feeling unsafe. This is the response, the long-term response to trauma. The persistent fatigue might be that for example, some women are having this persistent fatigue, Hashimoto, this is called, so autoimmune disorder that connects to what could have happened in the past. But if there is no recalling of trauma, it's hard to actually pinpoint what happened and how to work with it. And today's medicine, today's health practitioners, they don't actually know how to holistically work with the problem. Usually the response is to give pills for depression, for anxiety. And the more pills you take, the more your body just collects the chemicals, but it's not releasing the trauma. So it's just shutting down the responses, like numbing the response of anxiety, for example. And when it comes to anxiety, I actually have a separate talk about it, because it can be relieved through breath work. So really simple breathing exercises. But when it comes to anxiety, we can find ourselves in a circle, in like a wheel of constant worry, even though we think, well, there is nothing to worry about. So this worry I dealt with, it's fine, the next comes in. It's fine, the next comes in. And it's just like a wheel of constant worries about nothing, maybe to a logical mind, nothing big to worry about. But that's also the long-term trauma response. And what is really important to remember is that everything your body is doing is designed to keep you safe and protect you. So no matter the response, that was created in your body to keep you safe and protect you. This one sentence can change the viewing of a situation or how you feel about it. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what your pain is telling you. So the pain in the body. And we have different areas with different connections to what happened or what is happening. And usually neck and this area that's supposed to hold a large amount of weight, our head, is the stress, worry, and anxiety. Shoulders, feeling that you carry weight of the world on your shoulders. The back is expectations, anxiety, insomnia. And there is many more that connect to specific places in the body. I have a different pictures as well to tell specific little spots in the body that might have this pain and this as a result of locked trauma. So with that, I can send them an email later on with these two pictures, because they are very detailed. You won't be able to see clearly in here, and then you can just zoom it and see if you actually find these responses, these pains in your body, and how it can connect, because it might give you more clarity on this subject, clarity, understanding of what's really happening in the body. And as we are on this subject, I want to show you a short video on The Body Keeps the Score. It's a fantastic book. It's going to be shown in this video. Can you see that okay? Can you give me a thumbs up that you see the screen? Yeah, cool. I'll open that.
The Body Keeps the Score is the beautiful and suggestive title of a book published in 2014 by a Dutch professor of psychiatry at Boston University called Bessel van der Kolk. The book has proved immensely significant because it emphasizes an idea that has for too long escaped psychiatrists and psychotherapists. Van der Kolk stresses that people who are suffering emotionally are unlikely to do so just in their minds. Crucially, their symptoms almost always show up in their bodies, in the way they sit or breathe, in how they hold their shoulders, in their sleep patterns, in their digestion processes, in the way they treat their spots, and in their attitude to exercise. Taking the body more seriously opens up new avenues for both the diagnosis and treatment of emotional unwellness. Instead of simply seeing a person as a disembodied mind, which must talk its way to a cure, a therapist is advised to see the body as a kind of score sheet of the emotional experiences that its owner has been through, a score sheet that should be read and attended to as carefully as any mental account. To take one example, many people who have grown up having to deal with the overwhelming rage of a parent will have learnt to suppress their own anger and their desire to hit back at those who hurt them. In their minds, they will have become meek and precisely attuned to fulfilling the wishes of others, however unreasonable these might be. But as importantly, in their bodies, they will have learnt to be very still, almost frozen, because a part of them associates the expression of anything exuberant or powerful with the risk of bringing about retaliation from others. These people might sit in a particularly stiff way, or have an ingrained resistance to running that has nothing to do with laziness. What is at stake is a fear of one's own vitality. In trying to treat such people, van der Kolk goes beyond advising traditional talk therapy. He would also recommend that they try, under the supervision of a therapeutically trained teacher, kickboxing or karate, competitive running or swimming, sports these people might long have resisted because of a cowed relationship to their strength. They might also try out rhythmically chanting or drumming, thereby additionally releasing pent-up longings to assert one's right to be. Traumatized people tend to have bodies that are either too alert, responding to every breath and touch, flinching and bristling at contact, or else too numb, shut down, heavy and immobile. Treatment seeks to find a more comfortable halfway house between these two extremes. Van der Kolk's book helps us to think anew of how to deal with people who, at the start of their lives, were not properly held, caressed and soothed, in the way that young children desperately need to be in order to feel at home in their own skin. As part of their work, van der Kolk and his team opened up a sensory integration clinic in Boston, a sort of indoor playground for children and adults, where one can get back in touch with a body that was not properly, and by loving hands, touched or cuddled, gently swung from side to side or hung upside down for a giggly moment. In the sensory integration clinic, under the instruction of a therapist, one might dive onto foam-filled mats, have a roll around in a ball pool, jump on a swing and balance on a beam. It sounds childlike and is meant to be, offering a serious chance to go back a step to correct a long-standing alienation. Those who were once neglected by emotionally stunted parents have often almost literally withdrawn from their bodies. They own them, but they do not properly live in them. They might be rendered deeply uncomfortable if anyone touches their shoulders or strokes their back. They might intuitively think their body was disgusting, because that's how it once seemed in the eyes of those who were meant to look after them. For such people, van der Kolk might advise a therapeutically informed massage to help rebuild a basic trust in one's skin and limbs. As he puts it, he wants the body to have experiences that deeply and viscerally contradict the helplessness, rage, or collapse that resulted from trauma. It is no doubt deeply unfortunate that a difficult past appears to give us physical as well as mental symptoms, but the body's travails can, in van der Kolk's optimistic account, also become a source of memory and evidence when our minds have otherwise seized up or fatally doubt the legitimacy of their own feelings. We can start to remember what might have happened to us by asking ourselves questions in therapy, and at the same time by taking a look at how we are sitting, how we breathe, and how we feel when someone we love proposes to hold us. Then we can hope to be healed, not only by wise arguments and kind voices, however consoling these might be, but also by dancing, swaying from side to side on a gigantic swing, chanting in unison, or, best of all, surrendering ourselves to a very long and very nourishing hug from someone we have quietly dared to trust.
So thank you very much for listening to this. I've got the book as well. It's really kind of I used it, so it's not the best quality right now. But this is the book that they talk about in the video. So The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And it's as I mentioned before about the trauma response dissociation, especially, it's really important to understand that we might talk and talk through it, but if we cannot start feeling, there's not going to be any trauma release. So feeling into the body, and I will show you the I have the methods written down about what are the methods to release trauma. So what was said in the video, body massage, touch. I've added here acupuncture, yoga, physical exercises, dancing, moving the body generally in any way that feels good to you. Psychotherapy, because it's always good to tell someone about what happened. Energy work, inner work, play. So energy work is the work on chakras. Inner work might be inner work with your child. Play is anything that gives you joy, anything that brings this inner child out. So it can be running down the hill, or rolling in the grass, or it can be swaying on a swing, jumping onto the mattresses. There are places that you can actually go and do that, like these giant trampolines. And breath work and meditation is also a way of release trauma trapped in the body. Why breath work? Because our bodies are storing especially grief, sadness in our lungs. So when we breathe, we might find that actually there is this release of something that you might not be able to actually explain, but it is happening. It is there. So some emotions are going up towards the surface and going out. And what also was mentioned by this lady in the video about van der Kolk is that music, playing, maybe drumming, and releasing the voice is also a very powerful tool. And what I found is that people that maybe struggle with dissociation or struggle with trauma, long-term trauma response, are very hesitant to take part in any of these mentioned because of fear. Or sometimes they will participate in one of them. So for example, it can be yoga, but that's not everything that you can do. And when you expect physical exercise to be the cure, you will be disappointed. It's not going to be. It's the series of trying different methods, especially when you find yourself responding with dissociation, because then you have to unlearn this. Your body needs to feel safe enough to start feeling. So you start with something that you are the most comfortable with, and then you go further, one step further each time. So it might be exercise and dancing, or just exercise at the beginning. Then it might be a massage, and you go to someone that might not be trained in therapeutic massage, but as long as you are comfortable with someone touching your body, you are stepping one step further, which is amazing. So whatever you want to try, just do it. Just, let yourself experience new methods. Because as I explained before, our medicine, the modern medicine is not going to help all the way. The chemicals that we put in our bodies are not the answer to the problem. Mindful living tools. I've prepared that just to give you a few examples what to do, how to start living a better mindful life. Talk to yourself in a positive manner. Be your own friend. What you say to yourself matters massively, because if you will talk to yourself negatively, your life will be negative. And this is scientifically proven that what we think about ourselves, what we think about our life and people around, is what we essentially experience. And I'll give you this example that I give many, many times with saying no. So I don't want to experience that. I don't want to have this in my life. What is actually happening is you are creating this in your life. So this example is, don't think about a purple elephant. Don't think about purple elephant dancing on a field. Don't think about purple elephant dancing on the field. What you probably thinking right now, imagining in your head, is the purple elephant dancing on the field, because this is how we are all wired. Remember that feelings come and go. Whatever you're feeling shall pass. So we are not, and you are not, your feelings. Anything that comes can as easily go. Is the awareness and acknowledgement of those feelings that matters. So accept the feelings and do not hang up on them. For example, you are not sad, but you are experiencing feeling of sadness. So this is not your identity that you are sad. This is something that you are experiencing. And when we are feeling sad or feeling exhausted, we need to rest. And when you rest after a period of time, you then might invite a different feeling. And this is a flow. This is a flow of life. Feelings are changing. Meditate and do breath work daily, because if you are, for example, if your long-term trauma response is feeling anxiety on daily basis, you can't just do the breath work when you feel anxiety, a panic attack coming up. This won't help your body. What will help your body is having a routine of breathing calmly. Then you will find that the panic attacks are subsiding, or they are going away, because you train your body how to breathe on daily basis. And meditation is also very important. I know that sometimes people are thinking, oh, I can't meditate because I have to sit still for half an hour and an hour. I can't do that. But all you need to do is 5 to 10 minutes per day for breathing and meditation. Meditation can be as simple as seeing your breath, focusing on your breath. So when you breathe in and out slowly, you breathe in towards your lower abdomen, you just focus on this action. And you can even set your timer on for 5, 10 minutes, whatever, even for 1 minute. Set your timer, do this exercise so you're not worrying that you will be late somewhere. You know that this amount of time you've got to spare and you can do this. Actually, I used really bad words, time to spare, because meditation and breath work is so important that it's not just something that we can afford to spare. Go outside as much as you can, breathe in fresh air and enjoy. Play on daily basis and hug it out. Whatever you have, whenever you have a possibility to hug someone, do it. And learn, teach your body to hug with intention. So not just a pat on the back, but really hug, especially if you don't have a partner. Use your friends and hug them as often as it's possible, and stay in this hug for a moment. Really feel this connection to other person, because connection is what is healing us. Essentially, touch is what we need, and especially to long-term trauma response, if we haven't been held as babies, we need touch, and touch will be healing. So if you feel like you can't do this at this moment, you might just want to try imagining yourself hugging someone, and then going one step further, maybe just having this awkward and short hug, and then maybe a little bit longer hug, and ask your friends for help. If you can trust someone to hold you, do this. Ask them, can I please have this moment with you? Can you hold the space for me? Because I would like to try this. Do not be afraid. Do not think that you have to go through everything on your own, because it never works like this. You're never alone. And the true healing doesn't come from sitting in stillness and just meditating on your own on a big mountain. The healing comes from having this connection, having touch, massage, dancing, and there is always people involved in the process. I've got also some tips for meditation. Make sure you make yourself comfortable. Not too comfortable to fall asleep, but make yourself comfortable enough to stay in a position so you don't have to have your legs crossed. You can lay down, and to prevent falling asleep, you can have your knees bent, feet down. So when you're falling asleep, your knees will move, and that will wake you up. And if you must lock yourself in a toilet, if you're a mom, you might not have much time for yourself, but you can find a minute or two for yourself. Use a breathing technique to get you into meditation state. Breathing is always a great medicine. And if you only focus on breathing, you don't have to listen to guided meditation. You don't have to talk to yourself. If you just focus on your breath, this will be your meditation. Mindfulness, you can observe your breath, your thoughts or feelings, and let yourself just be. So how breath work helps with trauma release. On a physical level, breath work initially taps into trauma stored mainly in the tightness of your diaphragm and psoas muscles. So diaphragm is the muscle that helps us with breathing. It's underneath our lungs. It's like a long and quite flat muscle that goes down when we breathe in, goes up to get the air out of our lungs. Psoas muscles are the ones that are attached to our adrenal glands on top of our kidneys, and it's attached to our spine, and it's main tightness comes from our stress response. So if we have our adrenal glands on override, these muscles can hurt and prevent us from walking normally, running, or doing any sports that you enjoy. So it's important to have a look at that. These two important muscles are integrally connected to our fight or flight stress response. And what we're going to use are, at times, fast-paced breaths while engaging the diaphragm and belly. So if you imagine yourself breathing deeply into your lower abdomen and really engaging those muscles, you will then allow your muscles to release the trauma that has been perhaps stored in these parts of your body. And as I said before, we as humans store grief, sadness, trauma in our lungs as well. So breathing really helps to engage and release. And when we are doing the breath work that I will walk you through in a few minutes, we are going in a state of controlled hyperventilation. So what is happening is our brain shuts down some of the parts in the brain, allowing us to experience and to release those parts that have to be released, or you feel comfortable with releasing right now, right at this moment. Nothing happens in just one breathing session. So it's a continuous process. In my own experience, I said it very often, I had 8 breathwork sessions that were really powerful after I've worked, I've done some inner work. So I was aware that this can happen. After all 8 breathworks were really intense and I was crying. I let myself cry. I even was shouting in one of the breathworks. And the 9th one, I think it was 8th of or 9th one of the breathworks, I still do them, by the way, was when I actually felt joy of being me, being in my body. And it was amazing. It was just sheer joy, love, unconditional love that I felt in my whole body. So that may also happen as the result of the breath work. But what I would like you to do is commit to it fully. Now, time for discussion. So if you have any questions, maybe you have any thoughts, this is your time. We've got 7 minutes, so we can do that.